Hi guys, welcome to Fierce and Pretty. Honey here. I'm still not 100% well after my flu, so once again, try to bear with me. Today I wanted to do a VR that has made me think the longest time ever about any of the videos that I've done a VR to. And it's Natalia's from Ouroboros, My Deck, and I. The questions she was asking in the video, I found them to be actually really challenging. And the reason why I'm so late in the game is that I've been really trying to understand my relationship with my deck. And I guess it's no surprise to anybody who's seen my videos that my deck is the Toth. And the deck that I call my deck is this specific greenie. First of all, I wanted to share you the background story of this deck and how it became my deck. We have this local Finnish website where you can sell whatever old stuff. And I found a mini Rider-Waite-Smith with a blushing fool. And of course I wanted that deck. So I went on and got it from a real nice guy. And afterwards he sent me a message, because you can send messages in that platform, that I actually do have a Toth deck in a great shape, also a vintage deck. And I said to him that no way, Toth is not my cup of tea in any way. So I said that nope, I don't do Crowley, I don't do Toth, so forget it. But then what ended up happening was that one person said to me that they could take the deck, because if he would sell it with a reasonable price, then they would get it. And so I went and ordered it for them. But when the deck actually came, they started to feel regrets, the buyer's regret. It wasn't expensive, it was only 50 euros, but still they were like, no. And then I was like, okay. I opened the deck. I held it in my hands. And something happened. I had never felt anything like that with any deck before. The weight of this deck, how it felt to shuffle, how the images looked. And from that moment on, I was hooked. The guy who sold me the deck, he said that you can return it if you don't want it, so it's okay. But I said that no, I think I'm gonna keep it. And that was my single best tarot decision ever. Because something woke up in me when I got this Toth deck. And it truly was love at first sight. I started to, and the guy was super nice, because I didn't know anything about, Crowley and Toth, because I hadn't, I was keeping my distance to all that shit. And he was kind enough on that platform, so we started to have a conversation, and he was giving me tips on what to read, offered me some Finnish things to read about and get to know, and it was just a deep dive after that. And the cool thing is that we ended up connecting in Instagram, and still to this day we talk every now and then. So it's beautiful the way you can make connections when you have something that unites two different people. So I'm forever grateful to this person and these unexpected circumstances that landed up the Toth in my hands. So then what about Natalia's questions that made me actually struggle a lot, and made me think about what the tarot in total means to me and how I view our relationship together. And I'm still not quite sure what I'm able to say to you guys that would be something that would be easily understood. Because my journey with tarot has been short, intense, but I know that it's a relationship that's not going anywhere. It came and it's gonna stay. But while this card popped out, when it comes to Thoth, when it comes to this deck, we have an understanding. We both know that this is me. When the Prince of Cups is on the table, we both know we're talking about me. These conversations that I have with this deck, because I say at least 90% of time when I'm holding a tarot deck, when I'm shuffling a tarot deck, when I'm doing readings with a tarot deck, it is one of my Thoths. I don't only use this deck, I use those others too, because they are all over the house. Whatever is the closest I'm gonna use. Sometimes just watching TV and shuffling the deck, whatever. But I think that while I'm observing the deck, it's observing me and learning from me. And in that way, we both know who and what we are talking about. And I think the Prince of Cups is a perfect example of our questions. Because it's not like in other decks, even though the reason, of course, behind that card is that I'm born in November in a time where the Prince of Cups is ruling us on the sky, so to say. So, but it's not like if I read with a Rider-Waite-Smith based deck that I identify with that card. No, it's only with Thoth when I see myself so deeply in that one. When we're talking about Rider-Waite-Smith based decks, it's mostly the Death card where I see myself, and that also comes from my birthday. But the Thoth and the Prince of Cups, it is a special connection. Again, this guy. So I think that me observing the deck and kind of like the deck learning with me, and we've been creating this own language that we can, it's like this deck is a foreigner, someone whose language I don't speak, but along the way we have created like our own little language that we both speak, if that makes any sense. And I think that this deck, because many of the other decks that like are Rider-Waite-Smith based, I think we share a language. At least we speak kind of like, I speak English, so we do have a shared language. But with Thoth, I think that we've developed something like a code language when I was a kid, and I used to have code languages with friends. So the Thoth feels a bit like that to me. And I'm still finding the questions by Natalia so complicated to answer that I'm just trying to speak this out in my own words, and maybe you get those points between the lines somewhere there. I'm sorry, but it's just still impossible for me to articulate these things. But what I've learned by reading to others with the Thoth, because I still do I have this whole year, this free reading project. I'm doing free readings for feedback, and if you're interested about that, by the way, I have a short video introducing that stuff. It's pinned on top of my YouTube page. So I still do that. But what I've learned doing those readings for other people with Thoth is that we understand each other even better. It's like when we are not talking about me and my stuff, I understand it even more clearly. Then it's like we have the same language. And I love the way, because first when I started with, Rider-Waite based decks, and I got used to the illustrated pips and the narrow perspective, that way of creating the minor cards, kind of, it distills the broad meanings and focuses on one aspect. And I started to find that a bit limiting. And I was scared of pip decks at first. I was like, I don't understand them. But when I was doing readings for other people, and I was always surprised because there's questions, you never knew what's gonna come up. You never knew what the questions are, and they were sometimes so surprising. But I was amazed when I started to do those readings with Thoth that I was able to get those answers, and I started to really appreciate the more pippish decks. And I have been dabbling with Marseille, but that doesn't happen with Marseille. It only happens with Thoth. I can get out of the cards that are they now, dignified or ill-dignified. I can sense whether the card is showing me a better side or a darker side of itself in a spread. And I fell in love with the way that these minors in the Thoth speak to me. So I feel that the biggest difference between Rider-Waite based systems and cards is in the minors. And I simply love the wide range that the Thoth minors give to me in a reading. But also one thing I learned about this deck while doing readings for others is that it always wants to go deep. I've started to learn in what type of readings it's best used, and when it comes to like something simple and practical, like really everyday mundane questions, I don't think that those are the readings where it's wisest to use the Thoth for me. I think in those situations I will use that 10% of my reservoir and take some other deck while doing the readings. Because Thoth has a way of diving so deep into the matter, if it's on a personal reading or a reading to other. And when you end up doing a really deep reading to a person that actually they sent you a kind of superficial question, and their level of self-understanding or how they see the world and how they feel about tarot and whatever, it just makes the querent confused. When you are actually talking about that matter, but you are diving deeper than the level that they were expecting, you drill deeper, you get the energies, and then you lose the querent kind of, because they can't see as deep as the card just did. I'm not sure if I'm making my point here. But so I think that it depends on the one receiving the message. And the biggest confusions I've had with are these superficial questions when done with Thoth. So that's kind of a learning curve for me with the Thoth deck, to use it wisely. Use it with people who are ready to do a bit more deeper digging behind issues. And I think that my relationship with Thoth has evolved the most out of any of my relationships with my cards. It has been teaching me so much. It has inspired me so much. It has led me to so many interesting paths. I don't think that there is actually anything in my life that has inspired me as much as this deck has, to learn, to evolve, and to grow. I know it might sound silly. I've been studying a lot in my life, and you know, with work and schools and whatever, but never with the intensity that I have been studying the stuff that the Thoth deck keeps pushing me towards. I never thought that I would be doing these deep studies with Kabbalah or astrology and really getting this satisfaction of learning and growing and understanding, and these like these aha moments, these like, okay, wow, when I see these dots. It's like when you're watching a crime movie and they have all these little markers on the wall and they are pulling the red strings and they are trying to understand stuff. And when they do, and when they make these connections, like pulling these strings, it's the way I feel with Thoth. And it is super intense. And that's why sometimes I have had to keep a break, for example, in my Thoth studies for a while to let all the knowledge simmer in and just cook a bit on a slow heat. And it has been teaching me patience. It has been teaching me to listen better, because I know I can talk, but it's teaching me to listen. It has also led me to learn a whole lot more about Aleister Crowley and the little that we have on Lady Frida Harris. I've been collecting a lot of books and reading a lot of books about Aleister Crowley and all things. I'm not involved in OTO or the Lima or anything like that, but I've been reading on those topics and learning, and it's been super fascinating. And I guess one final thing that is a huge part of my connection with this deck is the references to Egypt. I've bought this little scarab from Egypt when I was 7. This ankh I've had in my life for 31 years also already, because I bought it also when I was 7. The moment when I got to go inside a pyramid, walk those aisles in that hard to breathe, low oxygen air, when I got to see all those things in front of my eyes, in the museums and in the actual places that we could go into still back then in the 80s, something in me clicked. From that point on, when I was 7, I felt this fascination to the ancient Egypt. I do watch a lot of YouTube videos on the topics, and I've been reading many books in my life, even fiction books. I'll actually show a few of my favorites here up as a picture that I've been reading as a young girl already. So even though everybody kind of agrees today with this idea that tarot has nothing to do with Egypt per se, and as far as we know today, the history goes back to Italy and in the around the 1500s or something. But I love the way Aleister Crowley embedded the ancient Egypt into this deck. I love to listen to the audiobook of the Book of the Law and kind of follow the story of Nuit and Hadith and little baby Horus. I dig baby Horus, but it also, the part of the ancient Egyptian symbolism and connections just strengthen my relationship with the Thoth deck. And I find it so fascinating to think, what if I could have been a fly in the ceiling to see when Aleister Crowley was in Egypt, getting the Book of the Law and everything. It must have been such a wild, amazing adventure. And to read about Aleister Crowley's life, it's just so mind-blowing. Okay, of course there are some crazy stuff also in there, but to imagine that someone actually lived that life, and it's not so long ago. Okay, I think it's time to wrap up. Sorry, Natalia, if I quite didn't actually answer to your questions, but it's just, this deck means so much to me that it is hard to put in words. It touches me in so many different levels that none of my other decks do, even though I really like many of my other decks a lot. But this deck that I got by a mistake, I wasn't searching for it. I thought we were never meant to be. I think it's just so interesting start, and how deep we just went. It was like it came and it asked me, like the Fool card, taking my hand, and it said, "You want to jump?" And I was like, okay. And we're still falling. We're still falling. And I don't think we ever stop falling together. But with this deck, I feel that when I'm holding it in my hands, it's also holding my hand. To me, this is something more than just mere pieces of paper, even though I say that often, that tarot cards actually just what they are pieces of paper with ink on it. But I think we became friends, companions on this weird journey of mine that I never expected in the first place. The whole journey with tarot, the whole journey with spiritual stuff, everything that has turned my life upside down. I never asked any of this. I wasn't seeking. And it was the same thing with Thoth. I think this one just found me. And I'm happy that my eyes were open enough that I could see too. Thanks, Natalia, once again for a great hashtag. You are super inspiring. I love the way you dig deep in that brain of yours, and I appreciate how much you made me think this time again also. And even after thinking about this for a month or so, how long it has been since you made the original video, but I'm still not able to answer, in a clear way to your questions. But the reason I did this video was that I wanted to try to articulate what this deck means to me. Maybe when I edit this up, I'll see if it made any sense or not. Because the way I do videos is just blobbing out whatever comes. I don't so much think things beforehand. And on the editing table, I just end up seeing what ended up coming out. So, my deck and I, me, the Thoth, we make a good team. So, that's about it. Until next time again. Bye guys.